Hey everybody. Today is Friday, January 8th, and this is In Case You Missed American History. If you're watching this, that means you can come to class today, and that is okay. I hope you're doing well. I hope everyone around you is doing well, and hope you find some time to do something relaxing this weekend that you like to do. Some of you guys have got a little catching up to do, but hey, man, that's the name of the game. Sometimes you fall a little behind, and you got to make it up at the end. And I hope you can still do that. So today, what I'm going to do with you guys is give you a little recap of the things that we talked about today in class, the ins and outs, the basics of some of those 12 things that we've been talking about with Chapter 4. And get ourselves pretty close to the end of the Chapter 4 part of things. All right, so some quick reminders first. Keep working to get yourself caught up with things that you owe. I've been really proud of some of you guys. Some of you guys have been able to get me some things, and I do appreciate that. And a few of you guys have let me know that you're working towards getting some things done. Keep plugging away. You can do it. Don't forget that Seeking Empire, that's in Google Classroom, is due tonight by midnight. If you have any questions on that, please reach out to me or any of the old work for that matter. So what we're going to do with our time today is we're going to keep going on those 12 things, like I said, and we're going to see how many of them we get covered and how close to the end of things we can get ourselves. And like I said, if you've got any time left in your allotment for American history today, use that for work time to do anything you need to do. Or if you're already done, man, do something fun, do something cool. Watch a good movie. Let me know what it is. All right, so here we go. Sorry, I always have to double click on that. Okay, so obviously, if you've been paying attention to the news this week, you know that our country is pretty politically divided. Or for that matter, if you've been paying attention during the course of your life, you know that our country is politically divided. Now, in this time period that we're talking about, around 1900, there was a pretty strong political division too. As now, the two major political parties were the Democrats and the Republicans. Now, it hasn't always been that way. I don't know how much you guys talked about this with Mr. Place, or if you're a non-Marshall 8th grade kid, whatever class you had with whoever you had, I'm sure they were awesome. But for basically our entire class worth of stuff, it's the Republicans and Democrats. Now, back then, elections were really close when political tensions were pretty high. And part of the reason with that is the country had very obvious divisions on who was going to be a Democrat and who was going to be a Republican. These lines don't necessarily follow the same things today. Obviously, a lot more things today they're based on political ideas, but it also does, there are some pretty predictable things about where you live and who you're probably going to vote for. It's never 100% anything. But back then, the Republicans were generally from the North. Remember, the North was anti-slavery. The Republicans freed the slaves. And they were the freedmen, the former slaves. And so if you were a Republican and you were going to win votes in the South, odds are the only votes you were going to be winning were those of the freedmen, the men, African-American men, between the ages of 18 and whatever, who hadn't been shut out of voting. Okay. Now, the Democrats generally won the votes of the South. The Democrats had been the people at the time that were pro-slavery. Now, we'll talk about this later in the year. And then immigrants coming into the country. Now, the immigrants often sided with the Democrats because the Democrats ran the political machines we talked about yesterday, but also the immigrants were in competition with the freedmen for some of the jobs that were available to them. Now, if you're wondering, like, what's the difference between Democrat and Republican today, we'll get into that later in the year. You'll talk about that in American government and citizenship, while that froze up, which you have to take in order to graduate down the road. Okay, so based on the fact that the North was going to vote Republican and the South was going to vote Democrat, and the freedmen and the immigrants were probably going to cancel each other out, elections were really, really close back in the day, probably even closer than they are now. Maybe not as disputed, but definitely went down to the wire. I guess I'd compare the results to the kinds of percentages we had in 2016 and 2020, where things were really close, came down to the Electoral College, and you know how that works. Hopefully you do. You've been paying attention to the news. So ultimately, the elections were going to be decided by what they called close states, and we now call swing states. Okay. Now, if you think about it, there are certain states, and I'm going to use today's world to help make sense of this. There are certain states that we know are going to vote certain ways. They always have. And it seems like, at least in the foreseeable future, that they always will. For instance, Texas. Texas is always, at least in my experience, a red state, which means they vote Republican, whereas California is always a blue state, which means they vote Democrat. Now, there are states, though, that go back and forth. We call those swing states. They call them closed states. For instance, you live in one. Wisconsin is one that has gone back and forth over the years. We voted for Obama. We voted for Trump. And in this last election, we voted for Biden. Now, you personally, your family may not have, and that's okay. I'm just talking about the state as a whole. And so we're a swing state. We are important. We help decide who wins and loses elections. In this last election, some of the big swing states were Wisconsin, Michigan, Arizona, Georgia, and Pennsylvania, okay, for instance. Now, because swing states are so important, politicians have to do whatever they can to win in them. Donald Trump didn't necessarily have to do anything much to win Texas. Okay. Biden didn't even probably bother going much to Texas because it didn't make sense. Trump knew that he was going to lose California. And so Biden had that one pretty well locked up. But in the case of swing states, what people that are running for federal political offices do is they will go and visit those states. They become, kind of staples. You've seen them. You know who they are. They've been in your state. They visited. They've done things. They've gone to a sports game so that people could see them, things like that. They make promises to people in those states. They say, if I'm elected president, I'm going to look out for dairy farmers and things like that. But then they also can do something else, which isn't as commonly done today, but it still does get done. But was very common back then, and that's choosing someone that's called a native son to run with you. So if you're running for president, obviously one of the things that you get to do is you get to choose your vice presidential candidate. And so what a lot of people do is, like, for instance, if I knew that I was running for president and I had to win Ohio, for instance, I might choose my running mate, my vice presidential candidate. I may go, I need to win Ohio. I'm going to pick someone from Ohio because then people from Ohio are going to see this person who is one of their native sons, and they are going to be more likely to pick me because they want that person to help represent them in the federal government. And so obviously elections stayed close. Those battleground states, or swing states as we call them, became extremely important and have continued to be that way since. I think this concept is really important, especially if you plan on being politically involved or having an opinion about the way things work in those elections. Now, the next concept is really important too, and this is something I think can dictate a lot of things in your life. So in the 1890s, no, not a lot of things, but big money things. In the 1890s, there was a depression. And when there's a depression, people try to find solutions to get out of the depression. And so one person suggested that one way to get out of the depression would be to start the old money machine and print a bunch of money. I guess you could compare it to the stimulus checks ideas of now, but we'll see what you think. And so the idea was to print money and give every family a certain amount. Well, that didn't end up happening, but this did raise some interesting questions about what the impact of doing something like that would be. And so the idea is, and I'm going to write some things on a card. In inflation, the amount of money available goes up. Now it can go up in one of two ways. The government could make more money, or people could just be more freely spending of their money. They're not saving. So money is flowing more freely. People are less afraid to make big purchases. People are running out and buying luxury items. Now, if money is flowing freely, or the amount of money out there becomes higher, what do you think happens to the prices of items? All right. If you said that prices also go up, you are correct. And so in inflation, there was more money being circulated, the prices go up, but that causes the value of the dollar to go down. Now, what I mean by that is your dollar buys you less. As the price goes up, you may hear your parents say that, back in my day, this is what I sound like, I used to be able to go take a date to dinner and a movie for $20 and have change left. And you guys are like, $20 barely gets me into the movie theater these days. It definitely doesn't even buy popcorn. I'm not going to dinner. Or you get this one. Back in my day, we used to go to the Quick Trip I like it when old people put the in front of things they shouldn't. The Quick Trip, and they'd have $1 and I'd buy a candy bar and 2 soda pops. Sorry if I made your parents sound old. Mom, Dad, if you're listening to this, I say things like this too. I only talk like that to be stupid. The value of the dollar is less now. Your dollar, I don't even know if it buys you a Snickers bar anymore, broski. Doesn't buy you a bottle of Pepsi or a bottle of Coke. And so in inflation, you get these factors. Money's up, prices are up, the value of the dollar is down. Well, when they figured that out, they were like, well, what if we withdrew money from the economy? What if we told people to save? All right. And that, I scribbled the wrong thing on the card. Jeez, preparation. Okay. If the amount of money that is circulating goes down, or if people aren't spending your money, you're going to have deflation. Now, in deflation, less money is going around. And so, all right, the prices, this is going to be sloppy because I started writing the long letter. The prices are also going to go down, which means the value of the dollar is going to go up. Okay, right there. Money down, prices down, value up. Now, here's the question. Why is this important? Okay, so you're looking to buy a house. You're going to make a big money purchase. Would you rather buy your house during inflation or deflation? Okay, I think you're going to want to buy it during deflation because the value of the dollar is going to get you more. Now, 10 years from that, and you decide you want to move into a bigger house. When are you going to sell your house? You want to sell it during inflation when the amount of money, when the prices can go up. And if you're wondering, like, how do I know if it's inflation or deflation? First of all, pay attention to the prices. Or you could very simply watch the news because they talk about we're experiencing a period of inflation due to increased spending or government dollars. All right, and then you know. All right, next. We got 2 more to look at today. Civil service reform. Now, civil service jobs are government jobs that are not elected. Things like professional firefighters, professional police officers, the people that deliver your mail, the people that plow your snow for the village, not like people you would hire to do your driveway. All right, those are civil service jobs. Now, back in the day, civil service jobs were viewed as being very political. And the reason for that is people that were elected to important positions like the village president, the mayor, the governor of Wisconsin, the president of the United States, when they were elected, they got to name civil servants to jobs. And so oftentimes back in what they called the patronage system, elected officials would name people who helped them get elected or their friends to jobs. And so sometimes you could get people that were unqualified. Like if I were elected the village president of Marshall, back in the day, I would have been able to name the chief of police, the fire chief, the person that's in charge of the town garage, the person that's in charge of the post office in town. And I could have named my friends or people that helped me get elected. Now, if in the next election I lost, those people all lost their jobs, and the next person, guy, girl, whoever it is, gets to name the people in their place, and they're going to be people that help them. Therefore, we're going to get a lot of people who are not really qualified for their job. People that are really qualified might not want to take the job because they might only have it for 3, 4, 5, 6 years before they get bumped out when the next person is elected. So this is the way things went. Presidents named people to important positions, not just the secretaries of, like the cabinet, but also to other important political positions. President Garfield was elected, not a large cat who likes lasagna, but President Garfield was elected and he named a bunch of people to civil service jobs. He then traveled around the country giving speeches. When he got to the state of Ohio, a man walked up to him and said, "Hi, sir. My name is Charles Coutu, and I helped to get elected president. I worked really hard for you here in the state of Ohio, and when you handed out jobs, you didn't give me one." Bang. And he shot President Garfield, and Garfield died. They looked at the next president and said, "Hey, we need you to name new political appointees to all of these jobs." He went, oh no, pump the brakes, broski. The last dude got shot. I don't want to have that happen. We need to come up with a new system. And that president, along with the government, developed something called the merit system, where civil service jobs are given to people who deserve them and can prove that they do them well. And you can have that job as long as you do a good job at it. So for instance, a lot of civil service jobs, you apply. You then take a test. Sometimes there's a second test, like a physical test. And then if you are the most qualified person, you get to do the job, whether President Trump is the president, President Biden, President Seep, President You name the person. All right. As long as you are doing the job and doing it well, you will keep it based on the merits of your performance. Okay. Last but not least, last one. Third parties. So there's more than Democrats and Republicans. I think most of you guys probably know that. There's a Libertarian Party, there's a Free Soil Party, there's a Nazi Party, and sometimes those third parties run people for president. Now, they have never won a major national election. They've won small local things, but there has never been a third party president. The first really, really major third party in the United States is called the Grange. The Grange was made up of farmers. Farmers felt like they were being underappreciated and undertaken care of by the American government. So in the 1890s, the Grange decided to run a farmer for president. Now, while that farmer really emphasized what was happening on American farms and what farmers needed, he did not get elected. Fast forward ahead 4 years, the Grange is dissolved, but they decide to combine the farmers and the factory workers to have a more powerful third party called the Populists. They were going to appeal to regular people, and they were going to try to look out for the average worker. While this was more popular, being the first third party to get more than 1 million votes, they still were not elected. Classically, these days, there's always some major third party candidate who has their own political agenda and their own political platform and decides to run. And actually, it's pretty common for them to get more than 1 million votes these days. But no major third party has ever won an election. So the question is, why win or why run if you can't win? And there's a two-part answer to this, and there's probably more, but I'll give you the two most important ones. First of all, you want the big parties to steal your ideas. So if I go out there and I say that, let's see. What do I want to legalize? I'm going to legalize gummy bears. All right, I'm the no gummy bear party. God, that would be terrible. I wouldn't want to live in a world without gummy bears. All right, but I'm the no gummy bear party. And when I give speeches, down with gummy bears, melt all gummy bears, no one deserves gummy bears. Our teeth are gonna rot, and we're gonna get fat. No gummy bears. If everyone's like, the Democrats and Republicans go, we don't like gummy bears either. And then if they get elected, I go, hey, you promised no gummy bears. And so I get them to take my idea. The other thing I can do is I can try to take votes away from a candidate I don't like. And so you've got candidate A, candidate B. They're running against each other. It's really close. I hate candidate A. He's a dipstick. Okay. And so I declare as a third candidate, I am now candidate C. I've got A, I don't like. I got B, whatever, I don't care. I got C, that's me. I'm going to say almost the same things as A. I'm pro this, I'm anti that, I like this, I don't like that, I like this, I don't like that. But there'll be one major issue where I'll differ. I'm a dog person, not a cat person. And so what I try to do is I try to steal votes away from candidate A so that candidate B can become president. Now, no one openly admits to this. No one ever says, I'm only running to screw over candidate A. But it has definitely happened a few times in history where third parties have taken votes away intentionally or unintentionally and caused candidate B to get elected president. So there you go. That's it for today. Please let me know if you have any questions. Get your work done. Get caught up. Have a great weekend. Take good care of yourself. Take good care of people around you. Give someone a compliment today for no reason. Bye.